A 2017 World Bank study indicated that the delays due to traffic jam was costing Uganda over $800 million, over 2.8 trillion in lost GDP. With this in mind, Kampala Capital City Authority has embarked on a city project as replacement for commuter taxi and border cyclists, mainly in the central business district. Already, a 30 billion loan request from Kampala Capital City Authority is before the Parliament Committee on National Economy to fund this project, and renovation works are underway at the Old Tax Park. So with dissenting voices from political leadership in Kampala, will this project see the light of day? Tonight we host Kampala Minister Betty Among and Kampala Central MP Raymund Ciriaco. Honorable Ciriaco and Honorable Among, thank you very much for responding to our invitation, and you're most welcome, and a warm welcome to all of you.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate the fact that you want to protect me from yourselves, but those are everybody's in a mask. But we can't do the mask now for my case because I need to connect with the people. But I think we have put enough space, and probably we shall all be good. Let me begin with you, Honorable Betty Among, because you're the Minister of Kampala, and you sit in cabinet of the NRM government, which has been in power for almost 35 years. For 35 years, you have not given this city an efficient mass public transport system. I wouldn't say you have failed. Let me say this, you just don't want.
It's not that government doesn't want. We have been in consultation. The attempt to introduce public transport began in 2013, where KCC attempted to start massive registration of bodas and taxis for purpose of regulating them. Unfortunately, as you know, sometimes when new policy emerges, there are always people who rise up to oppose. There was opposition from Bodas Association and some taxi drivers, and the matter was shelved. More studies have been carried out, and Cabinet has now made a firm decision on how to reform the public transport sector, and in collaboration with the drivers and all the other stakeholders, we are now having extensive consultation, and I think very soon we are going to arrive at what will move us forward.
What is the projection? What do you want Kampala to look like in terms of public transport system, if you agreed?
What we want Kampala to look like first is that we do not want the congestion. In terms of man-hour, the study that has been done by several organizations, international organizations, indicates that in terms of fuel, we lose 500,000 shillings per day just because you are seated in your vehicle.
500,000 shillings per day? Is that a correct figure you're telling us?
500,000
shillings per day
for one person seated on for people. You have left, let's say, Namugongo or Nalia. You are coming to work. You lose 1 to 2 hours just seated in the jam. Then you lose the fuel and the work that you would have done, the business that you would have got, the money that you would have got as a person. You would have lost it because going and coming, on average, we lose 3 hours.
Okay.
So we want to first reduce congestion. That is the first thing. Number 2, we want identification and order in the city. How do we get the order? The order is that one must have modern terminals. The taxi stages or parks, if you go to the old taxi park now, you have a place where there's no toilet, where there's no administration block, where there's no lighting, and we call it
So,
a city taxi park.
so now I want to ask this question, because the government in which you sit as a cabinet minister has been around for more than 3 decades. Why did you allow this thing to prevail for so long?
No, there are other taxi parks that have been modernized. If you go to Namaimba Taxi Park,
No,
go to others.
Yes, but for the case of the non-old tax park, for the case of the congestion, for the case of losing 500,000 shillings per day because of the jam, why did you allow this situation to prevail for 3 decades?
Because there are, first of all, the consultative process. In a democracy, you have to consult. And in most circumstances...
So for 3 decades, you could not consult?
I would say that the 3 decades cannot only be attributed that priority had been on public transport. As you are aware, the city became operational under the Act, the 2010 Act, as a central government city managed by the central government. Before that, it was being managed by local leaders that were, of course, of different political parties. So the agenda that has been driven by central government can be judged based on the Act, the Kampala Capital City Act of 2010.
Before
and
I come to Honorable
that's why,
Ciriaco.
let me say this, that's why after 2010, immediately 2013, the study to reform the transport sector began. And this report that we are now consulting on is based on the very broad consultative meeting and stakeholders consultation that has arrived at an orderly way that we can transform the transport system in the city that will be able to make people, at least number 1, travel in an orderly way. Number 2, those who rely on public transport should also be able, and part of reducing the jam is that you have one type of public transport that can carry many people. So if you have more buses, you have less vehicles on the road. We
do not dispute the fact, Honorable Amongi, that
yes,
you have been having plans. In fact, during the time when Jennifer Musisi was ED of KCCA, there was glorious plans of transforming Kampala Metropolitan plan, including having some cable cars and all this kind of stuff. All these plans have been in your cabinets gathering dust. I wonder what makes you think that this time around you're ready to go?
This time around, there are so many other things that have changed.
Like what?
For example, COVID-19 cannot allow us to go back to this city the way it was. We have to restructure almost everything in the city. When we talk about social distancing and you look at the market, it will be very difficult, for example, for everybody to go back to Owino at a go, because there will be no social distancing. When we talk about Kiseka market, it will be very difficult. So post-COVID, we must think outside the box. But this thinking outside the box must be able to afford each and every one to afford a livelihood. And this plan will not chase anybody from the city. It will regulate them. The city has expanded to the metropolitan area. Cabinet has now passed what we are calling the Greater Kampala Metropolitan Economic Strategy, which has put in place a master plan, not only for Kampala, but Kampala, Wakiso, and Pigi. It means the plan we are now having is not only for Kampala. So let us not focus only on the 5 divisions of Kampala. So all these taxis that come to Kampala operate in the 5 divisions plus the metropolitan area. Okay. So within the metropole, we are going to accommodate everybody to operate and earn money, and in a more better and organized way.
The Honorable Raymund Ciriaco, you represent Kampala Central. Yours should be the richest constituency in Uganda. Here where we are, you are a member of parliament, and you've had the proposition of parliament, of cabinet, on how they want to move forward in changing Kampala city. How would you respond?
To my fellow countrymen, I would like to be...
And women.
Thank you. I would like to be very clear and unambiguous. None of us is opposed to development. I don't think you are. None of us is opposed to progress. We want people-driven progress, and progress that encompasses the ideas of people, but also moves with them, knowing the problems that they face, having started these businesses. Now, the minister talks about the biggest problem being congestion. Let us start from that. KCCA should first address the cause of congestion in the city. The bodas and commuter taxis are only a symptom of congestion. They are not the sole cause of congestion. I can tell you, why is it that when you go through these cities in the night, or the capital city in the night, there is no congestion? Why is it that when they said that we can have trucks and motorcycles moving even without people, there is not much congestion? The answer is very simple. Let's see the reason as to why people move from the peri-urban to come and work in the urban. If you do not solve that, you'll never solve any problem called congestion anywhere in the world. You first solve the reasons as to why people move to have services in the city. Why should someone who needs a passport move from Entebbe to the passport office here at Ginger Road, Old Port Bell Road? Why should someone who needs, let's say, a given service move to Nira in Kololo? You must address the reasons as to why these people move from those far areas to this area called the city. So if you have a decongestion plan, maybe she would have been talking about a reorganization plan. But decongestion, for as long as those numbers of people continue to move in, we shall have the same congestion. It doesn't matter whether it was now 14 car, a smaller car or a bigger car, or even smaller taxis. And I remember the Paris study. The issue was, unless you switch the issue of mass transit based on time and dynamism, you cannot solve the issue of congestion. Of course, there is no one single solution that you can deploy to control congestion in the cities. I can give you an example. In order to solve some of the problems of movement of persons, because when is the city congested? During the rush hours, mainly. Why is it congested during the rush hours? Is because Ugandans come to work during similar hours. When do government offices open? Ordinarily at about 9 o'clock. When do schools open? At 8 o'clock. You're in a country where people move children from the west end to the northern end. I'll give you an example. You have parents that stay in Munyonyo but have to drive children to Kampala parents. The time they spend midway is not what you're having in Europe. In Europe and in the modern countries, you do not have to move children. The biggest cause of traffic, that's why you know, during pick-up hours for children, there is a lot of congestion. The reason is parents do not take their children to the nearest schools. In Europe, you move, or in modern countries, you normally seek residence or you reside in areas where you want your children to have accessibility to good education. That is where you normally go for the mortgages.
So yes, you've made...
Therefore, let's address the reasons as to why people massively move to the cities. Without exclusion of one sort of business, let's rearrange the entire transport sector. None of us says no to registration. Registration is okay. But she's failing to tell you one thing, that they are talking about exclusion of these motorcyclists from certain areas within the city. That has nothing to do with congestion. If we want to further control congestion, let's introduce a congestion charge. Even me, a private person, I'll tell you, the biggest causes of congestion are not public transport movers. Why? One commuter taxi that occupies the same space as my private car carries 14 persons. But my car, which I sit in alone, carries one person. That is why in countries that tried to even control congestion, like on highways, they introduced what we call the carpool lane. In the United States, the reason was to discourage people moving in cars alone. So if you're moving with 2 people or more, then you move to the faster lane because they are giving you priority and they are encouraging people to leave cars at home by choosing to use the carpool lane. Let's go together.
Okay, let me
so
go.
what am I trying to say here?
You've made your point, Honorable.
Oh my God. I need to make my point because you gave her...
you made your point.
It's okay. You
If
had your
that was a preamble in making your point?
She had her minutes. She had her minutes. Listen, when you're talking about congestion, it's not all about exclusion. And I want to make it clear as I rebut her point of congestion. The biggest causes of congestion are the private players. Secondly, if you want to solve it, let us address the issue of the light rail. The light rail and even this railway line of Kayola. Do you know how many people line up at the railway line? If it was functional and moving, let's say, 300,000 people to Mukono area and to the farther outskirts, then we have another line moving to Entebbe, another line moving via Wakiso Nansana to Hoima Road, as far as, let's say, Kachiri, another line moving up to Matuga. Then you would not even need to coerce these people to leave the city because it will be timely, it would move many people, and I mean, it will be cheaper to move on the light rail. What we are not objecting is none of us is objecting to the renovation of the old taxi park. Why? After all, these people have paid taxes. I can tell you in the last 10 years, the taxi parks have contributed over 80 billion shillings to the revenue of KCCA. So there is no reason for KCCA to even borrow money. These guys have paid to improve that place. Every single month, they are charged 120,000
per taxi.
Per taxi that enters. It doesn't even need to ordinarily enter the taxi park for as long as it's operating within Kampala. Therefore, these guys have earned the right to work within this city. So the city you want to reorganize is the city these guys have contributed
All right, thank you very much.
In development.
Honorable Betamongi, I think I buy the ideas or the points that Honorable Muhammad Ciriaco is saying, especially that we clog the city because we are looking, why do we come to the city? We are looking for opportunities. We are looking for safety. We are looking for health services. We are looking for excellent services, especially education. And I know, for example, many people would be driving towards Namwongo because there's a Green Hill Primary there and everybody's going there. Even if you're coming from Nigeria, you'll go there. You're looking for a Lohana, you're looking for a city parents and stuff like that. Can't we? It's saying, look, in every division of Kampala, you have excellent centers of excellency, and where people can take their children or even go to hospitals, and maybe make a bylaw that if I'm staying in Rubaga, I should not cross to Nakawa looking for education services because there's a school there, and that maybe can sort the issue of congestion on the Betty.
Now, I think one important fact, I'm now very happy with Honorable, is that he is not opposed to the development, reorganization, streamlining, and creating order. On that point, I want to salute him because I had got a totally different understanding from the press conference they held as members of parliament, and I was shocked. But now I have forgiven him and left the other one. Number two, let us look at a systematic mechanism of handling the problem. And how do we handle the problem in the context of the financial aspect in a phased manner? I have indicated to you that we have passed what we are calling the Greater Kampala Metropolitan Plan. This Greater Kampala economic strategy, which within it is supposed to have a Greater Kampala master plan, is already supporting how each of the metropolitan area outside the 5 divisions of Kampala can support itself economically, business-wise, such that people who want to come and have shops downtown are able to have shops in all those malls in the outskirts of Entebbe, of Nalia, of Namugongo, Nansana, and all that. So I'm glad that so many people now are moving. So already the congestion through business is happening. Number two, if we are to talk about private cars being the major contributors of traffic jam, it is not a one-car person. We have done a study. We have known that on average, a person has more than one car. Your class, you have a car that drops the children. Then you have your own car. Your wife or your husband has a car. So in a family, you might have more than one car. So we know that, and we have a plan for it. The plan, first of all, we are going also to have an introduction of a bus system for schools. That's what happens in all developed world. That you will sit and be comfortable, that a bus can pick your children and drop them and pick them. They are being done by private companies. But within the city, we have that as a plan. Two, in the context of implementation of the public transport, you cannot deny that public transport contribute. The disorganized manner in which they operate. In most of these countries, by the way, taxis don't even have terminals. They don't have. They just keep rotating within the city. And they have lights. If it's red, you know, somebody is in it. If it is
those taxis,
blue or green,
those taxis pick one individual.
No, there are also those that picks pool. There are pool taxi, and then there's that one.
You see, they can take you if you're 4, but what you're saying, these are 14 people that are moving. You see, when government renegated its responsibility over public transport.
Let me finish my point. I am trying to request honorable member to understand that other cities have thought outside the box. And that is what I want them to do that. Now, in the context of the taxis, what we are talking about is that congestion for private vehicles. There are so many initiatives now which are on e-governance. Most of now, can't you sit home and pay your bill for meme? You pay your bill for water. We are going to have an e-governance system which will reduce so many people who are business people, not government workers, not being able to come to the city.
Yeah, but the issue, Honorable, of having what we call centers of excellency, for example, education or hospital and all that, because there are things that attract people to come to the city.
Yes.
You know, there are things that are taking people around city parents or around Lohana
exactly.
or around Green Hill. And the question is, what do you do so that a parent who has a child in Munyonyo does not need to leave Munyonyo?
That's why I started by saying the Greater Kampala Metropolitan Economic Strategy deals with all the business aspect, the social aspect, to decongest the city. And the master plan of decongesting, within the master plan, will now be what should be what motivates people to go to the city. And what motivates people to go to the city, education, hospital, and so on, will now be moved into the metropole. And when it's moved, like now, there are very few people who will come to shop in ShopRite. When you stay in Nalia, you stay in Namugongo, you have so many big shopping malls.
Okay, Honorable Muhammad Ciriaco.
That strategy is going to address that. But really, I want to give to rebut what he talked about exclusion. We are not excluding anybody. What we are doing is that there are certain areas which we want lesser congestion within the city.
That's exclusion.
And therefore, we will be giving routes. It is a very small area, actually, from Wampeo Avenue up to Bombo Road, Mulago Runabout, going towards Kololo, Upper Kololo, going to Wampeo
In other
Avenue.
words, the central business district, right? The
It's
CBD.
not, the central business is bigger than that, because the central business goes down. Downtown is not among them. It's not within that. For it, it is only Ginger Road, Wampeo Avenue, Ginger Road coming to Kitgum Road, moving towards Lugogo Bypass, going to John Babia Avenue, coming to Akashi Avenue, Upper Kololo, down into Wampeo Avenue, that round, which are majorly government, where government
So
offices
there you
are.
wouldn't want to have border borders
There
around
we
there.
are going to have bus service, which can drop people to decongest, which can drop people, will be doing circular within that area and can drop you wherever the stops are. And within those areas, we are not excluding taxis.
Okay, Honorable
we are
Muhammad
only
Nsiriko.
excluding borders.
Okay, Honorable
so
Muhammad
I don't
Nsiriko.
want him to come on the issue of exclusion.
Now
Okay,
you-
Honorable
Now,
Muhammad
the border
Nsiriko.
borders, no, I want to
border
finish
in
this.
Uganda has become like
The
a lifeline.
borders that will access those areas will be borders that are doing delivery services.
Why?
Okay, Honorable,
Because
Honorable
those
Muhammad
are
Nsiriko.
office areas.
Why? You see, if you say that near office areas you can drop a parcel, but you can not drop off a person, it's funny. It's
Why is it
It's
funny?
a-
I
it's a-
have a bus for
no,
you.
No, I'm saying it's economic exclusion. Listen, if I'm taking a border all the way from Nakawa, and I have to get off that border, because let's say I'm coming to the ministry, to KCCA, and I'm coming from Village Mall, Bugorobi, and I happen to pick up a border, and the issue is that it should leave you at Wampeo, then you pay another fee to board a bus.
You will board a bus at
It
very
will-
cheap rate.
No, you see,
Yes.
please. Consider this, my honorable comrade, that because we have, not every single person has what we have. When you tell someone that there are some people who know that have come to the city and have come to seek something small. So when you put their double transportation payments in transportation, it's not a good incentive. The issue is, let everyone be in the economy and practice freely. What I agree with you is that let it be mandatory for every border to be registered. Have registration, have a tag, then have a helmet and give it to the passenger. Respect traffic lights, and if you do not do so, you will be penalized. I have been on the forefront talking about this the other day, and I've told them, listen, my voters who ride borders, whenever you hit the traffic lights and you're knocked, you do not only injure yourself, but you also injure the passenger. I will support anything that penalizes any road user that doesn't respect the use of the road, including those with sirens that climb the pavements and any other persons. But let me come back to the point I wanted to make. One, I'll give you what creates congestion and the congestion that she wants to address after having addressed exclusion. And I'm happy and glad that they are now talking about creation of a monopoly of buses in certain areas. But the issue is it will create a financial impact on someone who is boarding the other means of transport, therefore giving an advantage to another because of exclusivity of another. So if you say the buses are rotating here, don't they also go where the borders go?
No.
The answer, not really. Eventually they will. Otherwise,
will not.
Otherwise they will collapse. Okay? Then secondly, the big cars that do deliveries, you know, the trucks, if this city reduces the number of hours they come in during the day, do you realize that these big trucks occupy a lot of space? They do a lot of pollution, and they have little turning spaces. When you go down like towards Chagwe Road to Ikotorio and enter Kikubo, there is no reason as to why KCCA does not regulate the entry of delivery cars, which are the big trucks
Should be
that
at night.
deliver at night. It was done in Dar es Salaam. You cannot drive a delivery car during the day. The reason is they are long. At times they have difficulties in turning. Most of them are in a condition of DMC like you see them. And just for delivery trailers, huge cars, if they enter on Chagwe Road, then you'll have traffic congestion for about 3 hours. Then secondly, if you have this taxi park that has been there since the 60s, what are we saying? We are not objecting to what we are having there. Improve this, but also purchase auxiliary land or alternative land. For example, if we had another space at about Clock Tower, you see, Clock Tower, there is about 12 acres. Approach that person. It is also closer to the railway line. When you'll be building the terminal, someone who wants to use a matatu can use the taxis, but can also use the train. You know that there is a railway line, a railway sliding there that goes to Nalukolongo. So that is the planning that we need. You can even come and say, we have more matatus here, but the rest we are talking about are privately owned. Privately owned businesses like Namayuba can be converted easily. Do we have a huge bus stack for the bus terminal for buses moving outside the city? The answer is no. Everyone who owns a bus company has tried to forge around and create his own terminal. Modern coaches, Gaga, this and this, and they all penetrate into the what? The city. The reason is the reason I talked about in the morning. Initially. Everyone is looking to take their customers to the nearest market. The biggest market in the city is St. Valley Kudembe Market. It houses about 78,000 people. Look at, first of all, the 78,000 persons must move to conduct their business. Then we, the shoppers, must move to buy goods. Now, on average, you have about 180,000 people to 200,000 people transiting into Owino Market. You have another market, Nakasero. How many people does it accommodate? About 10,000 people.
So you need mass transport, efficient mass transport system.
That is what I'm talking about. Railway line.
So then why
just a second. I started.
Why do you oppose the bus system as a beginning to the rail system?
No, you see, the problem you're having is you're saying I'm opposing. I'm saying I oppose the monopoly. So, why? Okay. Just a second.
So can I get
just a second? Can we go slow?
So you don't
just
oppose.
A second. Don't we have buses in the city?
No, just for
we
clarity.
have Pioneer Bus. We have a Wakure Nume. Do not try to insinuate that there are no buses operating transport in the city.
No, but I just want to be clear.
Okay. If you want, just a second.
That you are okay
just
with
a second. I'm very much okay.
So
buses,
can I understand?
Just a second.
Yes.
Let me go. Buses are free to operate in the city for as long as every person is, for as long as the taxpayer is not used to borrow money in order to fund private equities.
Okay.
No.
Very briefly.
Yeah, no, just a second.
Yes. No.
They are presenting a plan of the ordinary taxpayer, this guy who has paid for all those taxes to KCCA, the border rider who has been paying taxes through consumption of fuel, to pay for a private player to bring buses in this city.
Which private player?
Okay, we're going to get into that. Honorable
this
Muhammad
guy is called
please, just please, we're going to take a break and when we come back.
They even wrote.
Listen,
they even wrote.
Listen, we're going to take a break and we'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching On the Spot. My name is Patrick Amara. My guests tonight are Honorable Betty Among, Minister for Kampala, and Honorable Muhammad Ciriaco, MP representing Kampala Central. But I just want us now to connect to somebody who's an expert in urban planning. And we have on Skype Amanda Ngavirano. Amanda, can you hear us?
Hi, Patrick. Yes, Patrick, I can hear you. Good evening.
Good evening, Amanda. I would want you to maybe come into this discussion. I suppose you've been listening to Honorable Ciriaco and Honorable Betty Among in trying to create an efficient public transport system for Kampala. What is your take, and where has government gone wrong? And probably you have also listened to the proposition they're making. How do you think we can sort the mess for Kampala?
I just feel like I'm in a very difficult situation right now between Honorable Ciriaco and Honorable Minister Betty Amongi, because that's very political. From a technical point of view, I just think that the problem is bigger than they're both explaining. What they're explaining is just a bit of the whole problem. Kampala's troubles are because it was abandoned and pushed to the edge.
Okay.
And it was abandoned while the other towns in the country were also being abandoned. So we were throwing everything at the city while doing nothing at the rest of the countryside. So now Kampala is choked in all ways in terms of housing, sanitation, drainage, overcrowding, and mobility. It's one of them, and that's what the honorable members here in the studios are discussing, mobility, and that's the traffic congestion story. I think that the traffic congestion is being caused by numerous causes, not only the 14-seater vehicles. It's about the infrastructure, which is inadequate. It's about for instance, the signalized junctions are very few. It's also about the poor road network generally and the road user behavior. Of course, the motorization rate is on the rise. We are buying more cars. We are buying cars every day despite the congestion problem. And why are we buying more cars? This is why we have to address this issue of public transport. Yes, the 14-seater vehicles have a higher carrying capacity. They have 14 passengers, and the private car has a maximum of 4, maybe 5, which means that we would rather go with the 14-seaters than the private cars, really. But we see that if a city is to grow and have real good services, it must also improve on the carrying capacity in terms of mobility, the public transport. So that means we need bigger carrying vehicles. That does not mean that we discard what is operating entirely as public transport in the meantime. It only implies that the new public transport system that is going to have a higher carrying capacity has to take into consideration the original public transport provider, and in this case, the taxi operators.
Okay. We seem to have just gotten, we've lost the line to Amanda Ngabirano there, and you're making very important, interesting issues. And
Can
I think,
you see me now?
yes, we can.
Am I back?
Please, yes, you are. If you can conclude what the point you're making,
Okay.
Amanda.
Okay, yeah. Let me just conclude this about the 14-seater vans. It would be good that their ability or the capacity to improve to higher carrying vehicles is improved upon. But the truth is, there is no city that is going to develop and retain the capacity that we have right now in terms of mass transit. We definitely need rail, we need bus transit. We also need the taxi industry still operating because of our land use pattern. You well know, I think Honorable Ciriaco mentioned that very well. Our land use planning was not well done, so we have really dispersed functions. Schools, homes, workplaces are all disjointed, and you see people commuting 40 kilometers daily. And this is something that has to do with land use planning. That is why the paratransit or the taxi industry or boda still have room to coexist with any improvement that we have for Kampala. But I see that the main issue is to focus on the rural towns of this nation, and then Kampala will start offloading the pressures in all aspects, including mobility. But what I see, the exclusion that Honorable Ciriaco is talking about, and Honorable Amongi was trying to explain it correctly, I think what I sense is the exclusion in the planning process. Because by design, we can exclude some functions in a certain area. That's why we restrict that this is a housing zone, this is a school area, and this is a shopping area. So we exclude the other functions. By design, we exclude other functions. And that can also apply to public transport and any other mode of transport. We can say, for instance, on the expressway to Entebbe, we don't expect a pedestrian, we don't expect a bicycle. But in this zone, let's say Namirembe Road, we expect a pedestrian, a bicycle rider, and a car. But in this particular zone, we expect a bus. So we can design exclusion that an expert should do, and that actually the job cities do.
Before I
But
let you, okay,
planning process is not right.
Okay, Amanda, before I let you go, I just want you to explain the non-motorized transport corridor for Kampala. It's beginning around Namirembe coming down, because there are some people who have not appreciated that or have not even understood it. I hear a lot of complaints, and I know perhaps you understand this better than I do. The non-motorized transport corridor, is it helping?
I think that's the same exclusion issue that we are talking about. By design, we must exclude for certain reasons. For instance, for safety, for improved air quality, and for also inclusiveness, catering for other people's mobility needs. So by design, that area is correctly planned. But of course, there are people that will be affected. But in the planning process, their needs have to be considered and listened to. If their businesses are going down, then they have to also discuss where their businesses will boom. Probably they can exchange and reallocate. But in planning, that happens, but it shouldn't be excessive.
Amanda Guevara, urban planner, we thank you very much for your time, and we appreciate your insights. And for that matter, thank you very much. Thank you, Amanda. Let me come to you, my panelists in the studio. We've just heard from an expert, Guevara, Amanda. And he also tried to explain the element of exclusion zones for the benefit of creating some kind of sanity. Your take, Honorable Ciriaco.
Like I said in the beginning, I look far more to the reality that we have and the business pattern that we are running. I'm looking at a scenario, and I would like to reiterate this. I'm looking at a scenario where I board a boda, or I board a matatu, whatever it may be. But let me restrict myself to a boda. I'm required to come here at NTV. And the only option I have is that I have to stop at Wampeo, then pay another 500 shillings to come here on a bus. Now, the financial implication you're heaping on a person who has just moved out of quarantine and COVID, these are things you have to take into account. Technically, amazing. From the view of the urban planner, yes, this is what we want. Modern cities have parks. This is what we want. It's the same case here that gave out the parks, like Centenary and other parks. Modern cities have golf courses, but what do we have at hand now that we can rely on to make better? At the moment, what we have at hand is a huge number of unemployed people that have resorted to riding bodas, moving a huge number of people that have no hope, that are trying to move from area to area, dropping off their curriculum vitae, trying to look for jobs, and they can only afford, for example, if I embark on getting one form of transport, that is all I can afford. I negotiate 2,000 shillings to move from Bugolobi to NTV.
Honorable Ciriaco,
I'm trying to say
why are people choosing boda?
One, reliability.
So if you create reliability somewhere, isn't that so?
Let me go slow. Let me go slow and finish. Number two, it is dynamic. You can get it anytime you need it. Number three, it can drop you to any zone where you want there and then.
So
therefore,
just hold on to the point. So Honorable
that is the ease.
Yes.
Reliability and dynamism and all that, can they be created by a public transport system other than boda?
Of course. Let me start by statistics, because for us when we plan...
Maybe before she comes in, she said there are no buses in the city, that they are introducing
I did not say there are no buses.
Let me be clear.
I said public
KCCA
buses.
has a contract. Yes, you have public buses. KCCA has a contract with Pioneer Bus. And Pioneer Bus has a huge parking at Nambole. It is running alongside the commuter taxis and the bodas.
The park looks like a graveyard of buses.
Just a second. You don't see Pioneer Bus?
But I see them in Nambole, but that looks like a graveyard.
As in they are all spoiled.
So can I now explain to you, Honorable
one at a time,
Ciriaco,
honorable members.
Okay. Honorable Ciriaco, the Pioneer Bus arrangement is a private run entity. What we are talking about will be a public bus system. Like when you go to Dubai, you who likes traveling, I always see you in the plane everywhere. Those cities you enjoy going to. When you go there, you get what they call tram. You get those the public bus. which is colored, which has a code number. What we are trying to do is that let KCCA, as the managers of the city, have a bus system run by the public, which will make it cheaper than what you are thinking. Now, boda are like 42% of the total number of public transport. But how many people do they carry? They carry only 8.5% of the passengers. So in terms of regulating them, if you regulate them, introduce buses, introduce alternatives of a well-organized taxis, then people will have options. So long as majority of people who jump on boda because they are saving time, because of congestion. And those are only 8.5% uses bodas. But if you look at the danger of boda, between 2014 to 2019, 1,064 people were killed because of bodas. In this period of COVID, we have got 68% reduction in the budget of Ministry of Health in terms of accident. If you go to the accident ward now in Mulago, you will find very few people. Because the major contributing factor to crime, to injury, to death is attributed to boda. That's why we want to regulate them. Why? And the fatalities also arising out of accident from the taxi, because they are not inspected, they are old, they are mechanically not worthy, is amazing. For a city, you must regulate transport and balance in between the safety of the population and the livelihood of the people who are running the public transport, either as private or public. So the catch-22 here is that in all countries, majority of the countries, you will find public transport system into two segments, the private ones and the public ones. And that's why we want to introduce the bus. Now, in the context of what Honorable Ciriaco is talking about exclusion, they are really like the expert has explained. We are only saying, if you are delivering food, if you are delivering, if there are motorbikes that will be specifically with a carrier box, those will be allowed anywhere. But the ones that are carrying passengers, that area which has a public bus service, they will not be allowed. However, taxis will be allowed. So if you do not want to pay twice to jump into a bus or to walk, because
so precisely, you're discouraging people using the boda. At the end of the day, you're destroying his business.
No,
we
are not destroying anybody's business, because the area where we are having as a boda free zone is a very small area where majority of the people within that area do not use boda. People in Upper Kololo Terrace, majority of them don't. So we have done a thorough study and found out areas where majority use bodas. And therefore, the expert has really explained very well.
Maybe you've talked
that
about
let me finish. I accepted.
Opposite Housing Finance Bank is a
I did not
NIRA
interrupt you. Can I finish?
So if majority of the people in those areas are not using boda, why even bring in?
Because when we are
what
regulating,
problem are they causing that area?
What are they
once
curing?
we regulate, if you have minimum number, you want to regulate so that you have the whole area zoned for a particular transport system.
Honorable
But let me finish, please. I want now to be to give you really clear reforms that we want, because there has been misunderstanding.
Okay.
People have been lying that they have said you will not return to the city after
precisely
post-COVID.
saying that.
That is not the case. What we have said is that after, if a lockdown is lifted, people will be assigned stages. You will go to the stages. We have gazetted already 8 stages. So any taxi that wants a stage will go into a stage. For bodas, we have proposed gazettement of 585 stages. You will be allocated the stages that are gazetted. Then we shall give a grace period for registration, because we know, good enough, I already have here so many bodas that have already given me their database. There are unions that have already said, Honorable Minister, we have no problem with the registration. We have no problem with all the condition you're giving. Only give us grace period. Good enough. That is the period, the 21 days that they're saying we are talking about, not for that they will not come back. In the paper, that is the 21 days for registration. Then there is 48 days for purpose of going to Ministry of Works for mandatory inspection for taxis, because that is a law. And Ciriaco was in Parliament when they passed that all vehicles must be subjected to mandatory inspection
what is the problem?
For road worthiness.
You see, that
so
is not the
after
problem
inspection,
Let
when you've got your mandatory inspection certificate, you will come to KCCA together with the stage leadership, and then they will now, we are introducing routes, and each taxi will have a route number and a route color. Then we are going to have stages for stops. So you will no longer have this thing, no. You will have stops where people can stop. We are going to construct shades where people can stand or sit to wait for their taxi. That is part of the what? Then the issue of driving permit. Majority of the people who are riding bodas, who are driving these vehicles, most of them do not have driving permit. So the mandatory aspect that when you register and we have electronic data, we shall capture the name of the driver, the driving permit, and we shall be able to collaborate it with the data from the driving permit or authority that issues driving permit. So all this will now, number 1, bring order, number 1, regulate the industry, and number 3, safety for the people, and number 4, post-COVID, we shall be able to track the vehicle, that in case we test you and you are positive for COVID, we will be able to know, or you yourself will be able to say, I was in a taxi that was this color with this route number from this area to this area. So surely I think Honorable should be able to support such ideas. Also, we are doing roads. Honorable here knows very well that I have already put before Parliament a loan for roads rehabilitation, which is to address the issue of pavements of the roads. Part of it will be gazettement of the free zone. Part of it will be the walkways, so that if you now go to Queensway, you will see we are doing already walkways, so that we don't have too much accident and crowding. We are even thinking of how do we handle the bicycle lane and the boda lane. So all this requires money, but we must start from somewhere.
Okay.
And we are starting
all right.
from
Thank you.
this intervention.
You made your point now. Your response.
Now, I like the sugar coating that the Honorable Minister tries to, the butter she puts on the bread in order to entice people that this is what is important. All Ugandans know what is important. Post-COVID or during COVID, no one told KCC not to repair taxi parks. No one told KCC not to fix the potholes. No single Ugandan objected to that. Everyone is with you positively. Let's compare KCCA, which you lead, to other cities. This is what other cities have, and this is what they prioritize. Like the urban planner was saying, other than transport, do you know the housing deficit that people have? Do you know that initially KCCA used to own houses and today doesn't own them? And do you know that is one of the reasons as to why you have no control over rent? Secondly, do you know the deficiency we have in commercial working properties? When you go to Europe and other modern countries where you want to copy and paste what you're seeing today, when we talk about decongestion, if you had the spirit to decongest, when do you plan to build a mall where people can rent shops from KCCA or even do mortgages of those shops? At the end of the day, if we do not address the issue as to why people come into the cities, that is number one. Number two, if we do not address the issue of knowing that, listen, we are talking about the services that KCCA should provide. The roads, the small feeder roads should be made. Let me tell you, do you know the traffic congestion that was being caused by potholes on Old Port Bay Road? Old Port Bay Road, the congestion that was being caused.
Can cause delays and traffic jam.
And definitely, you see that these people do not mind at times. They take their time, a hole starts slowly, it widens, until they have a contractor that can be given a bigger contract to do those, to fix those potholes. Otherwise, if they had a well-functioning unit, which I know is well facilitated, they would be fixing potholes overnight. Look at the pedestrian walkways. The drainages that we have that are gaping, that are responsible for deaths of, I don't know how many people died during floods in Kampala. She knows it. She would be giving us the statistics. That even during COVID, a lady, you will see, I think it was NTV.
She was the other day swallowed by a manhole.
I mean, in a manhole, an open drainage system. Fix what you have to fix first. Then let the transport sector will fix itself automatically. Do what you ought to do. Fix the roads, fix the traffic lights, fix the lights, the lights on the roads. If you want to talk about security, let's have enough deployments. Let's have community monitoring of people through our LCs. We can control the issues of insecurity. If we do not object, and I repeat, none of us says do not register border riders. Please go ahead. That is your mandate. Number one. Number two, even give them identifications. Number three, the identification must be based on a stage. None of us has come out to say that do not do that. That's your mandate.
So what is the problem?
No one has a problem. You're the one with the problem. Let me come clearly. Listen, you said in the beginning that you have no intention post-COVID to eliminate anyone from doing business. At the end of the day, you clearly said that we shall have exclusion. So slowly you don't have to bring out the point. I can tell you, you're doing exclusion by making some of the businesses, like of the cyclists, and I gave you an example. It would be discouragement if one other player, let's say the commuter taxis, can access an area and I cannot access it. That means the person will think twice before boarding a border. At the end of the day, the border will be on the stage with no users.
Can we have?
You talked about just a second.
Can we have real development without inconveniencing some people?
Just a second.
Because that can happen.
She talked about Lower Kololo Terrace, and I kept on smiling. Not everyone that has a house in Lower Kololo, it's my constituency. It's part of my constituency. There are more borders that actually move through the Lower Kololo Terrace. For example, there are very many people that want to move to Housing Finance Bank. There are very many people that want to move to the complex of Mukwano, where you have offices and other places. I can be owning a house in Kololo, but I have a relative who wants to come and see me. Not that everyone with a relative in Kololo,
And that
they
is why,
can afford.
that's why
Just a
I'm
second.
giving you a bus.
Just a second, please.
Yeah, no,
So if
you
this
see
person, just
the-
a second, if this person is coming from Natete, and they have to be excluded in some areas, that increases the price
No,
of
it
the
doesn't.
boda.
Because-
Or he has to pay twice. I pay for the boda to drop me somewhere, then I pick on the bus. Let us,
Honorable
just a second.
Ciriaco, no.
Let us do.
You are talking as
I-
if you are actually not a member of
I
parliament.
did not interrupt you.
No,
And that's
because
what
you have over talked.
No,
Okay,
no,
this is
no.
what we're going to
That's
do.
what you asked.
Okay, okay.
Yes, so can
Honourable
I...
Honourable
members,
Minister, with due
one at a
respect,
time. We're
with
going to
due
speak
respect.
one at
So
a time.
can I...
you
can
know,
I...
I'm still
No, I'm
speaking.
going to go for a break now.
So,
One at a time.
What I'm saying is that we can accommodate all these three players
And
because
we have
just a second,
accommodated
just a
all
second.
of them.
Because they are already in the business.
Okay, this is what we're going to
So-
do. Honourable Ciriaco, hold on to your point. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, I give the opportunity to Honourable Betty Amongi to respond, and also I will be opening the lines. I will be opening the lines so that you too can be a part of this discussion. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching On the Spot. My name is Patrick Amara, and my guests tonight are Honourable Betty Amongi, Minister for Kampala, and Honourable Mohammed Ciriaco, Member of Parliament representing Kampala Central. And we're discussing the plan to introduce efficient public transport system in the city and decongest Kampala. We've had views from Honourable Betty Amongi and, of course, responses from Honourable Mohammed Ciriaco. I just want to hear from you because this is also about you. But I understand online we have a Member of Parliament, the Honourable Latif Sebagala. And if Latif is online, I would want to hear your views. Honourable, can you hear me?
Yes, Patrick.
Oh, go right ahead, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening, Honourable.
Good evening, colleagues, Honourable Minister, and Honourable Ciriaco.
Good evening.
Of course, what I would like to inform the Minister.
Go right ahead. We are having a problem hearing you, but in case you are hearing an echo, Honourable Latif, just continue making your case. Ignore the echo in case you are hearing it.
Is your failure to involve all stakeholders. The industry you're talking about is the engine in as far as Kampala City is concerned. Because we know that all the boda people and those in taxis employ a lot of people. Therefore, if you talk about any program minus the involvement of stakeholders, Madam Minister, you are missing a point. What you are discussing right now on TV would have been discussed with leaders before even a proposal comes out. Where did you get those proposals without?
Okay.
And authority,
okay.
Without involving the mayors of the division, without involving your colleagues, the members of parliament. And you are aware, Madam Minister, how often I've told you about meeting leaders in Kampala, especially members of parliament and local leaders. Any program without involvement of the stakeholders really cannot move on well, because we know we want a well-organized city. But you cannot be a well-organized city at the expense of many Ugandans losing jobs. Therefore, I would appeal to Honourable Minister that if we want everybody to really to be on board, first and foremost, the border have their leadership. The taxi have their leadership altogether. Get their views, get their input. Let them understand and appreciate the reason as to why we want a cleaner and organized city. And you must put into consideration our setup. That how many people are we talking about who are now being employed because of that industry? And what will be the effect or the impact if we really make some kind of program without involving them. I want them to appreciate and also ensure that whatever program that...
Okay. Honorable Latif Sebagala, well, I would like to thank you very much for your...
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I want to thank you very much. If I picked anything from Honorable Latif is that do not talk about them without them.
Yeah, I think...
You need to have them.
Yes, you see, the problem we have with the leaders is that when we started, this is a technical report. The procedure of government is that when you receive a technical report as a minister, you start the consultation. So immediately we wrote to the Lord Mayor, inviting him for consultation. The Lord Mayor refused to come for our meeting. Others came, ministers, members of taxi leaders and so on. The mayor refused to come. What does he do? He goes and leaks the draft report in the press instead of using the correct methods of work. My colleagues, members of parliament, when Lukwago refused to come for a meeting we invited him for to consult him, after reading it from the press, instead of having a courtesy of coming to the minister or even a phone call and saying, what is this I'm seeing in the paper? They ran to address a press conference on a premature leaked documents that was distorted without any, maybe 40% of the truth and content. So I want to notify Honorable Latif that for us we had started the consultation. We did not receive goodwills. So what we have done now, we are consulting with the taxi drivers, with the bodas. If I can tell you here, I have National Border Union Task Force. It has over 54 registered border association. It is a union. We are moving with them. They have given us their views in writing, supporting the idea but giving us the challenges and how they want the matter to be handled. I have here National Union of Drivers, Cyclists and Allied Workers Association. Streamlining border. They are giving me their proposal. And they are saying we allow them grace period on the implementation. I have here from Orai Rides. They are giving us proposal on how they are handling online. I have here squad transporters giving us ideas. In my office, I have consulted the speakers of the division. I have consulted today alone. We had a meeting of over 200 people of different categories, taxi drivers. So we are consulting the right people who are affected. And let me tell you, all of them, they are okay with gazettement of stages, with identification, with ensuring that they have colors, that they have codes. They are okay with the insuring of their motorbikes and taxi, with mandatory inspection.
Why don't you use the UPC?
Please, what I am telling members of parliament is that instead of sitting in parliament and reading newspaper, let them come to the minister. We sit down. I let them know the program that has been received. I saw the NTV poll. I want to congratulate you. The public poll which came yesterday, 81% of the people supporting the reform. I've seen
can you
NBS.
Just be on record on that poll. You want to say all polls that are conducted here should be followed 100%.
No, I am just telling you. I am just telling you.
Put up a poll as to whether this government should remain in charge, and you see the poll, and you come back and tell us your views about that.
I am telling you, Honorable Ciriaco, even you yourself, even you have confirmed to me here that you are okay with registration,
Yes, with
with
registration.
identification,
No,
with gazetting stages,
Agreed.
with the
But no
code
exclusion.
coloring, with the rules.
Anyway,
I
let
was
me
just-
go to the
let me
point.
get a
All
brief
those
response.
Let me give you
are-
my
Honorable
response.
All
Ciriaco.
those are
Thank you.
those are the only reforms we have.
Let me
Thank you.
And Ciriaco agrees
Yeah,
with
don't
me.
worry.
Thank you,
So,
thank you, Honorable
please.
You see,
Amongi.
I'll speak for myself.
Thank you, Amongi.
I
Honorable
love
Amongi.
the way you want me to agree with you.
No, no.
But
you-
I'll speak for myself. I want to tell you,
you don't know,
Honorable
need
Betty
to.
Amongi,
Yes.
just know that I represent all classes of people, okay, in this city.
Just like I do.
Of course, you're the minister of all classes of people.
Yes.
Where I want to tell you that you've been economical with the truth is when you said that you're still consulting, and in this same program, you said that after COVID, they have to register within 21 days. So do not overblame Lord Mayor Elias Lukwago,
For refusing to come.
because he knew what you are doing
No, the
was
Lord,
not honest.
the
Just a
Lord
second.
Mayor said
You
they
said,
will be
just a
blocked
second.
from coming
Just
back.
a second. You have
No,
21.
quote it,
Please, just a
quote it
second.
very well.
Let me be clear. You said you have 21 days to end the
The proposal, I
after the
said,
lockdown.
the proposal
Yes,
in the
let's
technical
go
report.
slow.
Let us speak one
And-
at a time, and our time is getting
And
out.
for you,
out by the
you're
way.
already consulting. You're holding political meetings
Yes.
of over 200 people. How many of the political leaders have the capacity under this lockdown and directives to defy the presidential directives and hold political consultative meetings of your nature?
No, by 200 people,
And where did
consulting
they
in
sit?
segment.
In which
In
field?
the you've not been in the our big
So
president's
be fair,
office
just a second.
conference hall,
I agree.
which takes over 1,000
Very
people,
good. You have the luxury to meet those people in that area.
and they are taxi drivers.
That's true.
They are leaders of taxi
And
drivers.
It has no harm. Just a second. But I'm saying, who of your counterparts, including ourselves, can conduct such a meeting under the circumstances and the guidelines of the lockdown? The answer is none of us. We are, of course, restricted to not meeting more than 5 persons. And these people do not have a way to move. They have to walk on foot because they parked their cars and borders 60 days ago. As people are yearning to look for a livelihood, for mere food to eat.
So
You're
you,
talking-
you
just a
want me
second.
to consult, but again
just a second.
you are blaming me for
Please,
consulting.
you're rushing. You're rushing. I'm not blaming you for consulting.
you're
I'm telling you, you're rushing the entire process.
No.
There is no need to hurry. Do not use the excuse of the lockdown as your way to initiate a process that started in 2013. That's why some of us said, we are on record, go back. I do not. I'm on record.
Now,
on
the good
registration.
thing you have said,
Please,
the consultation
let me-
started
can
in
I-
2013.
Can I
Okay.
continue?
Can
Okay.
you repeat that?
Please.
That the consultation
Please,
started in
can I continue?
2013.
The
How
process.
many years have
Can
consultation
we
been
continue
done?
with this? The process of trying to dislodge these people from the city started in 2013.
There's nobody going to dislodge
The initial
anybody
process,
from the
let me
city.
go slowly, was the issue. Remember, we had a huge debate on Pioneer Bus when they signed an exclusive contract with KCCA. And it's on record. You have an exclusive contract with Pioneer Bus. And that's something we came up to say there is no reason for why you want to create monopolies in this city. And we gave our reasons, and that is why when we explained our reasons to the people, everyone coexists. We shall support you if you want to seek money to improve the railway line. The light rail. We shall support you if you want to close the deficit in the housing sector. We shall support you in the Yes, we have also our plans, because these are plans we share with our people. That is why we are elected into offices. Therefore, if you want to reorganize people, helmet, you have my support. Tags, you have my support. You would go in Kigali. They are borders, but everyone must wear a helmet, the passenger and the rider. And if you don't do it, there is a penalty. Introduction of a congestion charge. Me, I've talked about this for private users of cars. Should also be introduced if you want to raise revenue, by the way, and to reduce congestion. Therefore, what I'm saying is that we must have economic justice. These are people that have been out of work for so long. Let us address the issue that regards our taxpayers in Kampala And these are the ones, Mr. Kamara. We have over 4 million people that come into this city to work in rented buildings. They have issues of rent. The Minister of Kampala, you cannot be silent on issues of rent. You cannot be silent on issues of social security, where people are going to lose jobs in closed hotels and others. These hotels have been giving you local service tax. These people have been paying taxes. They are going to lose jobs tomorrow, and they cannot even start the smaller jobs where you can get trading licenses from them. The people are indented, the same people that are paying us ground rent, and property rates that are about, I think, 100 billion, are heavily indebted. And their houses are not going to be occupied because their tenants cannot pay either commercial or residential rent. Therefore, these are the issues we should be addressing. Creation of liquidity in the people post-COVID. If post-COVID you're talking about exclusion, you're on the wrong note.
Okay.
Post-COVID, just a second.
Okay.
We should be talking about issues of addressing the
All
20%.
those-
Just a
all
second.
those issues.
As the minister in charge of the biggest NSSF payers, talk about the NSS, the people who need 20% of their NSSF, talk about the people in rent distress. The landlords have warned that even if we open, you will be evicted if
So
you not
don't
just a
repeat.
second.
Don't repeat. You are repeating yourself.
Yes, so let's
So
talk
let-
about
let-
the loans.
let-
Let's do
let
bigger
Okay.
intervention.
Let me give
Okay,
you
this is what we're going to
information.
do. This is what we're going to do, honorable members.
The information is that before Parliament is a statement that will be made by government on measures,
Aren't you government?
economic. Yes, that's why I'm telling you. I'm telling you, don't
No,
worry.
tell the world.
No,
Okay.
no, don't. The issues
There
you
is
have
no
raised,
secret.
the issues you have raised, cabinet has discussed
no,
economic measures,
The president
Okay.
said
and
the economy won't have a
Minister
problem.
of Finance is going to make
Let me
a
get some
statement.
views here of those
so
who are.
please,
the-
let
the-
us refocus.
There's a
I am
gentleman
only
called
glad.
Ivan.
No, what are you focusing
Okay,
I am only glad
okay,
that
may I have
you
your
are on
attention?
the same page with
All right.
me on the-
Let me get some views here of some people who are. Ivan says, congestion in the city is not KCC a problem, nor Honorable Betty Amongis. Let us seriously consider relocating some government departments, ministries or agencies that will remove the peak hours in the city. Honorable Ciriaco is only appealing to his voters in Kampala Central. We need a bigger picture so that all residents of Kampala, visitors or those in transit, travel with ease. And then there's a gentleman also here called Ruweza who says, Mr. Muhammad in Ciriaco, there's no way we can organize Kampala without inconveniencing some people. Yes, some people will be inconvenienced. For purposes of creating order, I personally support the move 100%. And if you could allow me, Latitude, let me change, because you talked about COVID, and I think we need to go talk about this. Update, 21 new COVID-19 cases have been confirmed from 1,593 samples of truck drivers. This brings the total number of COVID-19 cases to 160 in Uganda. The new cases include Ugandans, Kenyans, Tanzanians, and South Sudanese who arrived via Mutukula, Busia, and the Legu borders. All 303 community samples have tested negative for COVID-19. Total COVID-19 recovery is 63. Total samples tested today, 1,896. What we should know in this update is that the number now stands at 160 of total confirmed COVID-19 cases in our country. And by the way, if we conclude, I think we cannot conclude without talking about COVID-19, because why don't you start a system of at least testing 2,000 community, random samples? You go to Kampala Central, go to Rubaga Division, go to Nakawa or Makindye. Just at random, pick like 1,000 people, 2,000 people and test. And then that can give us a picture of where we are really.
That's what has been done. That's why
But
what
these
you're
300,
reading,
those are very few people.
No, if you have been seeing the statistics being released by the minister over the last 2 weeks, she has been releasing community test results and the one for truck
But
driver.
these honorable monks seem to be the people whom you think have been exposed in some way.
No. It's a survey that we design, and the survey targeted high-risk people, the route where truck drivers move, big routes where they sleep. They targeted immigration officers, police officers, medical workers. That's how when they randomly tested in Masindi, they got a case from a police officer. In Rakai, they got a case from someone in Rakai who had returned also from Tanzania. So there has been an ongoing survey, random survey by government. I am glad to really note that the random survey we have done, testing survey we have done among communities in Kampala, all came negative. That's why today the minister announced that there is almost no community transmission in the country, because so far I think it's only about three or four people in the random testing that were able to be found. And
but also what you're calling random, Amongi,
yes, doesn't
look like really random, because you
example,
feel like this is a community that has been exposed. I'm thinking you come to Rubaga or go to Nakawa and look for about 2,000 people, test them.
Yes, like here we went to Kisenyi, randomly got people. We went to most of these areas which are in the slums, and we knew these are people with congested homesteads staying near each other, and randomly tested them. And in Kampala, we did not get positive cases. So this past 2 weeks has been only for survey and random testing. And the conclusion has...
I'm told it costs about $65 to test one person. And I'm wondering if that's the case, whether there's a government agency or your ministry is paying to Uganda Virus Research Institute. Is money actually being paid? Because with all respect, you can tell us about the numbers. You know, when you $65 per person, you may find 1,000, that makes about $100,000, and actually money either has been paid or not paid. How do you do it? Is the government paying itself or what?
First, we got a donation from the owner of Alibaba. Then government also bought, and it was delivered through Ethiopian Airway Cargo, and additional purchase has also been made. As you are aware, with the COVID, really the major intervention is testing, mask, capacity of the hospital, and all the money that has been passed in Parliament. The 94 billion that has been given to the Ministry of Health, majority of them are going to strengthen the health system. Now we have regional hospitals that are capable of managing COVID. So even when an outbreak is in the north or west or east, you have a minimum of 4 hospitals that will be able to manage. So the test kits, the ministry is ordering more test kits. Many test kits were going on truck drivers. But now when the president sat in the East African presidential summit, they agreed that each country tests their drivers from their country. So that will reduce substantially the cost of the tests that we have been doing. So the new test kits that will come will majorly be used for Ugandans, which will also facilitate whether we open the lockdown.
There's a
or
Kenyan
not.
truck driver that tested positive in Uganda, but when that Kenyan driver went back to his home, he tested negative.
Yes, because you can shed off the virus. When you are treated, when you are treated, for example, for truck drivers, if a truck driver maybe came to Uganda, stayed for 2 weeks, and was tested here, because what we are doing, when you are tested here, you are given treatment. Or there are some people who, there are very many interventions, most of the people being treated after getting positive.
And in the presidential summit, they held, it appears His Excellency Magufuli was missing, and yet we seem to be getting a lot of cases from Tanzania.
Yes, you see, with the state relations, that one, the comment is only reserved for the president and the Minister of Foreign Affairs. So I don't want to go there. But of course, it is true that we have many cases coming from truck drivers, from Tanzania, from Kenya, and that's why the summit was meant to address a common response.
Okay.
But really, the information, the scientific information we have now is that you shed off the virus, not really because there's a drug treating the virus, but because you have treated the symptoms and the virus sheds off.
Okay.
So if you are taking vitamin C, you are taking this, most people are now having local remedies, garlic, what.
You just have to have a better,
immune system. So,
anyway,
yeah.
Honorable Muhammad Ciriaco, today I was just listening to, I think, on WHO official saying that COVID-19 is here to stay. It most likely is here to stay, that's going to stay with us. And I think that worried me a little bit. What's your take on some of the things?
Yeah, I believe that is true. It is one of the things that I said ab initio, that we have to learn to live with it. In the absence of the vaccine, there is no reason as to why we still keep people at home, given the zero solutions that this government has to even make interventions. I told you that's why they run away from the discussion. And I love the selection you made in the messages you read.
No, those are what I didn't select, by the way.
That
was all I had.
Why are you so disappointed?
I'm not. Of these elitists, because I know them. I remember when we had just started the lockdown, I was here with you. They said, yes, public transport should be locked down. Then I came here and said, you'll hear more noise the day they'll say private transport also stay home. The day the president said private transport stay home is the biggest day I saw forgeries of stickers. That is the reason I'm saying people do not understand the pain of someone going through starting a small business, seeing how it is lost due to policy, and seeing how they close down because they live in the comfort zone. But for that individual who knows how to start up a small business, getting credit, buying a commuter taxi, buying a boda, they know leaving home for 60 days, having been earning hand to mouth, not earning for 60 days, waiting for government food stamps that never arrived, or that when they arrived, they were even in bad shape. Okay, let's accept at least when they arrived after 60 days. These are people that have gone into further debt. This is a reality. The Honorable Minister and some of us may not live this reality because God has given us a better way to earn. But I realize that for these people, yes, we can copy and paste what was in Wuhan, but do not come with the solutions that were applied in Wuhan. If in Wuhan there was this radical lockdown that we introduced in Kampala, we should have known that our people, polypotentially, 90% of them are living off debts in the commercial community, the private sector. Today, even if you open up factories, they are supplying to no one. I have a friend who has a milk factory making yogurt and other things, and he was saying, goodness me, I mean, we have to lose nearly everything we are taking. At the end of the day, even if you say the farmer must open...
That is not true, Honorable Ciriaco.
Please, I'm speaking
data.
For myself.
I have the data of consumption
no.
from supermarkets.
I'm speaking for myself. Just a
No,
second.
but when you are distorting facts...
No, please.
Yes, you are distorting
people are
facts.
pouring milk. They were showing people on Bukede TV pouring milk. There is no demand.
You mean
people
when you go to the supermarket, people are not buying?
I'm telling you, people cannot.
Bodas are delivering food
people
every day.
cannot afford. People do not have money. And you see...
Don't say people, say some maybe.
Most people.
Yeah, okay, now you are
listen, most
you can
people,
say people,
let me
not
tell
people.
You, the laissez-faire way in which you speak makes me think a lot. Honorable Betty Amongi, I was with you on the other side.
No, but I don't want you to distort facts.
And you exactly
know. Even if
you on the other side of the aisle.
You move.
I remember you speaking for the downtrodden. And
I really continue to speak for the downtrodden.
Let me go to the facts.
I always knew that you guys have a history.
Just a second. There are people... Just
you guys
a
have a
second.
history.
Can I finish,
yes.
Mr. Kamara?
And briefly, a concluding remark.
There are people that are losing their jobs. We have over 300,000 people that have been working in the hotel industry that are going to be off work. This is what we need to address. People are looking for easement of the lockdown. When will hotels open? When will the airports open? Of course, it's a huge conundrum. Okay. Other governments have provided solutions that as you stay home, we shall continue to pay you, or we shall do what we call loan interventions. If you do not have loan interventions for credit freeze, interest freeze on the loans of the private sector and small businesses, they'll definitely lay off people. When they lay off people, you're expecting about 2.5 million people to be unemployed after COVID. This was the report of the Minister of Finance. If 2.5 million people go into unemployment, forced unemployment, next will be hunger, next will be diseases, next will be crime.
All right.
So what city are you planning for when you already know that the biggest taxpayers to your own city cannot afford to pay their next rent in the next 3 months? How will they pay you trading license? How will they pay property rates? At the end of the day, this is what we have to be thinking about. Not that license-fair way of thinking.
All right.
That factories are open
Ciriaco,
and that everyone can afford.
Your time is
People
out.
do not have liquidity.
Your time is out. Betty Amongi, your concluding
Leaders
remark,
are
very briefly.
judged at a very critical time. This is a global pandemic. For someone to politicize a global pandemic is very unfortunate. Uganda, even by World Health Organization, has been ranked one of the best countries in COVID-19 response. So I really request Honorable Ciriaco, let us differ on other things. Let us not differ on a global crisis that Uganda is battling with precision. And I want also to conclude by saying, people out there, the bodas, the taxi drivers, be calm. Do not think that the misinformation you've been given is correct. We are only bringing a policy to regulate you. None of you will get out of business. We are sensitive to the fact that you survive and earn a livelihood from that. But let us regulate this industry of public transport so that our city is livable and accommodates everybody.
Thank you very much, Honorable Betty Amongi. Thank you very much, Honorable Mohamed Ciriaco, and all of you who have been a part of this discussion. It's true, we all want a better city. We all want an efficient public transport system, but which should be inclusive, that everybody should be involved. If they're going to discuss about you, you should also be in that room, or at least you should be represented in that room. And when it comes to COVID-19, let's remember, COVID anywhere can be COVID everywhere. So let us take care. Good night and God bless Uganda.